Let me make this clear. Veganism is not about loving animals. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am back, my name is Jun. I share educational content on every aspect of veganism and plant-based living, including the ethics, the environment, public health and non-human animal and human rights, etc. So a while ago, I repictured veganism by explaining how its core value and the way we as a species view life in general directly lead to our social justice, which is a human issue. And in today's video, I'm going to give you guys an in-depth summary of the ethics of veganism in terms of animal rights. And I'm going to ask you a question that I asked myself before I went vegan. Let's get right in. Here's what veganism is all about. Simply living a compassionate life. Now what does that mean? Everyone I know is compassionate, so why isn't everyone vegan? It means living a lifestyle that inflicts the least amount of exploitation, violence, pain, suffering and deaths on other living beings, including humans and non-human animals when possible. Now, when we talk about ethics, it is important to mention something called moral agency. Moral agency is an individual's ability to make moral judgments based on some notion of right and wrong, and to be held accountable for the actions they take. Moral agents have a moral responsibility not to cause unjustified harm. Now imagine, if you spotted a dog being abused on the street, you would most likely disrupt it or at least call the police because your moral agency would tell you to do something to stop the abuse. If you didn't, it would make you guilty or feel guilty. If it was a pig that is being abused, would you do the same? I believe most people would. But now, imagine there's a wall between you and the pig being abused. Would the fact that you know the pig is being abused but cannot see it make the abuse moral? The reality is, if you consume animals when you don't have to, you're not only neglecting the abuse, but also demanding it now that there's a wall between you and the victim. And we know that there are victims, so why do most of us do so without feeling guilty or even questioning the action? This is where the ostrich effect, which is a type of cognitive bias, comes into play. In today's society, especially in developed countries, we consume animals for 5 main reasons: culture and tradition, habit, convenience or accessibility, taste, and disconnection or unawareness. First, should culture and tradition dictate or guide our morality? In many cultures, women are treated less than men, and there are cultures that perform standard practices that we consider highly immoral. The fact that these things we consider immoral have been done for thousands of years does not make them moral. For example, owning people and exploiting them was legal and was a standard practice and a norm in America and in many parts of the world. Humanity has done a lot of sinful stuff, and we certainly still do, but our morality keeps changing our cultures, making the world a better place for more. Culture and society always change and progress, but they have created a lot of moral hypocrisies and oxymorons. In the Western society, why is it wrong to beat dogs and cats, but right to harm and eat cows, pigs, chicken, and fish? Why does such a moral distinction exist? Because we wouldn't respect people in Yuling for holding a dog and cat meat festival every year. They might say dogs and cats are their choice of protein. The only difference between a cow and a dog in the Western society is our perception. This brings me to the topic of speciesism. The word refers to the discrimination among species, which leads to the idea that someone is worth more than another, which is the root cause of all harmful isms, such as oppression including racism. This is what allows us to think that we have the right to exploit someone for our own benefits. This is also why we choose who to hurt and who not to. Now, the value of an animal's life is often determined by the level of their intelligence. What if I told you pigs outperform dogs and 3-year-old human children on cognition tests? What about insects and animals who we consider not very intelligent? Does the large difference in the level of intelligence make the exploitation of them moral? If intelligence is truly our guideline, is it okay to abuse a human baby or someone with cognitive impairment? We can all agree that is highly immoral because we deserve equal respect and treatment. And on top of that, we can probably also agree that those that are more vulnerable deserve more care. Therefore, intelligence or ability does not define the worth of life. What this means is that what's making the distinction between different species of animals is their species themselves. Other animals may not look, walk, or communicate like us. But do they not deserve freedom and equal basic moral consideration just like some do? Does the lack of relatable or shared qualities morally allow us to take the animal's right to live away from them? So the culture and traditions that carry the notion of human supremacy have created this habit of needless animal consumption and made animal exploitation a huge profitable business and made animal products more accessible. Religion is also a big factor, but I'll talk about it in a different video. The second to last reason we consume animals is disconnection or unawareness. Most of us are not informed of the cruelty and exploitation that we directly demand because they're simply hidden. Female animals in the industry are forcibly impregnated against their will, have their babies taken away from them. Most male babies are sent straight to the slaughterhouse or ground up alive because they don't produce anything, therefore are worthless. For this reason, veganism is also a feminist issue because the exploitation performed on livestock animals are determined by their sex, and the female animals are exploited for their reproductive system, the ability to menstruate, breed, and lactate. If we actually went inside a slaughterhouse, or if we had to cut the throats of those animals by ourselves, trust me, most of us would choose to eat something else without a brain or does not scream. Because again, as humans, that's what our moral agency tells us. And I think if we would never want to do it ourselves, we shouldn't pay someone else to do something we consider immoral on our behalf. Although the core belief of veganism has been already in our hearts, our brains are conditioned to believe that we need meat to be strong and we need cow's milk for strong bones. Therefore, causing the pain and suffering, if you know they exist, is justified because it is necessary for our health. However, that is not the case, which leads me to the last reason we consume animals. You know it: taste. Unlike lions, we do not require animal flesh to survive and thrive. We cannot eat it in its true form. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics and the British Dietetic Association, two of the largest organizations of nutrition professionals in the world, confirm that a well-planned whole food plant-based diet is nutritionally adequate and healthy in all stages of life, including pregnancy. So what this ultimately means is that animal exploitation is completely unnecessary, which makes the only reason we consume animals our sensory pleasure. We advocate for better animal welfare, better treatment of animals. Many argue that it is okay to consume animals if we kill them in the most humane, painless, and quickest way possible, and we should buy animal products from local, family-owned farms. But we say so not for the animals' well-being, but for the sensory pleasure we can get from their bodies. And at the end of the day, we wouldn't advocate for any of these if the animals were replaced with dogs or cats, because we know that taking the life of an innocent and sentient being, including insects, for unnecessary reasons is ethically wrong and immoral. And once you recognize the value of an individual and their will to live, it'll become clear that humane slaughter cannot possibly exist, because killing, regardless of how it is done, is far from an act of compassion. It is always easier to justify an injustice from the oppressor's point of view. What we have to remember is that things look a lot different from the victim's point of view. So why do we have to inflict pain and suffering on certain species of animals when it's unnecessary? A better question to ask here is, could sensory pleasure possibly be a justification for what we do to others? If we put it in a human context, that can only sound wrong. Yes, our diet or fashion is a personal choice, but if our lifestyle is a choice, why choose to be cruel? And what about their choice? We can choose to do whatever we want, but if we choose an action that involves a victim, there has to be a good enough justification for it. We always have a choice, but let's remember, the animals do not. Therefore, it is not our right and freedom to take the animals' lives away from them, because they do not have the right and freedom to choose to object to it. You cannot have a freedom of choice at the expense of someone losing it. It is a moral violation. Let me make this clear. Veganism is not about loving animals. We're not telling or asking you to love them, that's not the point, and we don't care. Veganism is about justice for animals and all sentient beings. It is about their rights, and it's not just about non-human animals, but also humans as well, as I explained in this video. So why do we focus on non-human animals? Because 1, they are the largest group of victims of exploitation by humans, and 2, it is something that most of us can individually, practically, and easily implement and make make a significant impact on our morality on a daily basis. Most of us are against all oppression, violence, and injustices. Veganism is all about causing the least amount of suffering and bringing peace to the world by respecting the basic fundamental right to live. And it all begins with what we put in our bodies and what we wear in everyday life. Consuming violence and benefiting from someone's suffering and death won't take us anywhere. I once loved and I still love the taste of meat, dairy, and eggs just like most people do, but learning these from other people made me question myself. Who am I to exploit and take the life of an animal who doesn't want to die for my selfish sensory pleasure? And who am I to decide who is supposed to get hurt and who is not to? So it always boils down to determining whether 10 minutes of sensory pleasure is more important than life, the entire lifetime of an animal. And I made the connection and decided that the life of an animal is not worth less than a sandwich. And I decided to never come up with another invalid and false justification for what I know is morally wrong, but instead align my actions with my core values. If you found this video insightful, please like and share it to spread awareness and fuel this movement based around justice and compassion. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video.